Yeah, my sister Marissa brought up a great point that unfortunately in our modern times we tend to get conditioned by society to think it's evil to do this, but even people that don't even know the Father can make them do his will. There was a story about the, radical terrorist group ISIS destroying altars of pagan shrines, way back, I think a couple of years ago. And Yahuwah can even use people like that, people that are not even believers in his son, that don't believe Yahusha is his son. He can use people like that to do his will. And really, we should not be thinking, oh, it's such a bad thing. If we, as the body of Messiah, understood what the scriptures said concerning this matter, Christians wouldn't be taking the stance that they're taking right now. It blows my mind that Christians are saying, oh, why would they do such a thing? What do you mean? That's what Yahuwah told the Israelites to do when they went into the land of Canaan. So, I mean, whether the Islamic radicalists know it or not, they're doing his will without even realizing it. They're kind of like, being used kind of like how Yahuwah can use Nebuchadnezzar to do his will. He can use many different pagan people to do his will. But I'm glad Sister Marissa brought that up, because that goes along with this study. We need to unlearn what we have learned, to quote Yoda from Star Wars. Need to unlearn what we have learned. So, I mean, this is something that we need to understand, is what society tells us a lot of times is the opposite of the truth.
We've been lied to about everything.
We've been lied to about everything, how to interpret the Bible, read the Bible, we've been lied to about. And this is a study that's going to really show you how oblivious we have been to this fact. So, Sister Marissa, if you could possibly continue our study with 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 4.
1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 4 says, "Nor to pay attention to fables and endless genealogies, which cause disputes rather than an administration of Elohim, which is in belief."
Mm-hmm. So this is the way I usually explain it to people, is if you get so tied up in where you go back to, who the original Israelites are, how far your genealogy, I can't even pronounce it, but how far your ethnicity and your family tree goes back, it becomes a distraction. That's what Paul's trying to say. It becomes a distraction. It becomes something that's really going to just result in unbelief. And so I see so many of our brothers and sisters, and I would really recommend our brothers and sisters out there that get stuck in this BHI movement, that you would really reconsider this verse and really meditate on this verse a little bit. Please don't get sucked into something that has nothing to do with your salvation, number one, has nothing to do with keeping the commandments. Please don't allow this to become such a major doctrine in your walk where you forget about keeping the commandments. That would be a prayer I would have for anyone that comes across this study and is listening right now, that is, has an inclination to research their lineage. I'm not saying it's wrong to research your genealogy. I'm just saying don't allow it to become a distraction where you're not fulfilling his word. So that's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I wanted to break down. And obviously fables, again, refers to myths, pagan religions, that almost every pagan religion out there has some sort of mythology in it. I mean, you look at Kabbalism, you look at Gnosticism, you look at Freemasonry, there's always this mystical element to it. Hinduism, another one where it's really mystical. It's like inner teachings, very occultic. So I think this is what he was referring to, Paul was referring to when he wrote to Timothy in 1 Timothy 1-4. Chapter 1, verse 4 was, don't give heed to these fables, these myths, and endless genealogies that at the end of the day, they're just going to result in, bickering with one another. And really is just a distraction. So that's what that verse Sister Marissa just read. And I think I'll actually give myself another cross-reference here. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17 to 18. All right, so 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 17 to 18 says, "Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, says Yahuwah, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. And I will be a father unto you, and you shall be sons and daughters, says Yahuwah the Almighty." So this is a direct quote Paul is quoting from the Tanakh here. And he's talking about do not touch the unclean things. So any Christians that have came across this video, I would really ask you to reconsider if you believe that Yahusha made everything clean. I would really recommend you rethink about that and search the scriptures, search the Torah where it's talking about clean and unclean, because Paul's obviously talking about, he's telling believers not to touch something that's unclean. If there's no law of unclean and clean, then Paul's talking about something that doesn't need to be observed. Then it makes no logical sense why he would say that. Let's think about that for a second. He's saying do not touch the unclean thing in context of current day. Even though he's quoting from Isaiah 52:11, he's talking about, as he's speaking, he's talking about in modern day not to do this stuff. He's basically telling whatever assembly he's writing to, the Corinthians in Corinth, he's writing to them, telling them not to touch the unclean thing. So,
clean and unclean are still in place.
Yeah. So, and this whole chapter is about we are the temple. We are I should say more correctly for that Greek word, a dwelling place, not the temple, but a dwelling place of the living Elohim. So this whole chapter is about our bodies. This whole chapter is about our bodies keeping ourselves clean. And that's another thing we need to unlearn too, is trusting the labels on our food and stuff like that. And, getting away from GMOs and natural flavors. When you see something that says natural flavor, so this is stuff that we need to unlearn from the world. You can't be trusting the food industry because they're making fake flavorings from chemicals, and that is defiling a temple of the Father. We are not our own. We are bought with a price, and I think that's actually in this chapter too that Paul talks about.
And not to forget that natural flavors comes also from dead, aborted babies.
I forgot about that one.
And from the end of the raccoon.
Yeah, the beaver anal gland.
Yeah. I think it's the beaver.
So yeah, that's for specifically. I think that I know for a fact that pertains to vanilla flavorings, strawberry flavorings. So if you see that on any type of frozen dairy, I've looked this up a little bit. So anyone I would suggest, if you're a believer and you consider yourself to be bought with a price, as 2 Corinthians 6 says, you need to be very careful what you're putting into your body. So we need to be a lot more careful what we're putting into our bodies and our temples of the set apart spirit. We need to be very careful.
95% of the foods out there has natural flavorings. You know that, right? About 95% of everything that is out there is got natural flavors.
Yeah, I had to get rid of some of my stuff that I thought was safe, and I had to get rid of it. So I'm focusing on trying to stay away from natural flavorings completely. I got rid of stuff the other night that said, it didn't say flavorings, it said natural flavor, but still that's taking risk. Yeah. And it was organic. That's the messed up part.
Wow.
It was organic food that said natural
organic.
Food. Yeah.
Legally.
It had a USDA organic sticker on it. It was the Cliff Bars.
Oh, really? Yeah. Clip
Yeah,
bars.
I could not believe it. I've ate those for a long time because they're, they seem like a safe trail mix type of thing, and they had it didn't even say organic flavorings. It said organic this, organic that, and then like the last ingredient said natural flavor.
Natural flavor. Just like
I was like,
kind also bar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind bars too. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm glad I never had a kind bar. All right, so let's see here. Sister Marie Rios, if you're with us, can you please read Isaiah chapter 52, verse 11?
Hey, Sadie's on now.
Oh, okay. Sadie is on. Yeah, you or Marie, it doesn't matter, either one.
Read it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, put it up on the screen, brother, because I don't have my Bibles in my trailer.
Oh, okay. No problem. You or your daughter Marie could read it. Doesn't matter, either one. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Isaiah 52:11. Okay, I got it on the screen now. It should be on the screen.
Coming. There it is, 52:11. And it says, turn aside, come out of there. Touch not the unclean, come out of her midst. Be clean, you who bear the vessel of Yahuwah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where Paul gets it from in 2 Corinthians chapter 6. The Septuagint probably is a little bit more word for word what he says. So the Brenton's English Septuagint says, depart, go out from there, touch not the unclean thing. Yeah, word for word. Go ye out from the midst of her, separate yourselves, you that bear the vessels of Yahuwah. So yeah, this is where Paul gets it from. And again, we need to be unclean. We need to be clean, not unclean. We need to be separate.
Don't need to be unclean.
Yeah, so let's see here. We also got one. My sister Shoshana is up next here. We have John chapter 4, verse 23 to 24, and Jeremiah 10, 1 to 4. So here we go. Let's get to John 4, 23 to 24. Let me get that on the screen. It's a little easier. There we go. John.
I've got it in my book.
Okay.
I just have to put my reading glasses on to make sure I can read it.
No problem.
But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father also does seek such to worship him. Elohim is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship in spirit and truth.
Now, just like a little tidbit, I forgot about when you look at the different versions of the New Testament, like with the Aramaic versus the Greek, it doesn't just say that Elohim is spirit. It actually says the Ruach, or the spirit, is Elohim, referring to the set-apart spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ruach is Elohim, and it is fitting that those worship him worship in the spirit and in the truth, which is interesting to me because we know the truth is Yahusha. So technically, in a way, it's saying worship in Yahuwah and in Yahusha. It's kind of interesting because Yahusha says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So that's kind of interesting. I never thought of that verse that way before until I kind of put two and two together there. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so truth is the Torah, Yahusha. Spirit is the Father, the Ruach, the set-apart spirit. So when we worship him in spirit, that's like our willingness to worship him, and we have a pure heart, and we believe we have a kind heart. But when we don't worship in truth, then we're lacking something, and that's what's happening for centuries upon centuries. We haven't been worshiping in the truth. Maybe we've had the spirit, but not the truth. We had the spirit to, actually want to worship him purely undefiled, but we didn't have the knowledge of the truth. We didn't know that, what we were doing is against his word. And so that's why we need to have both the truth, the word, the Torah, and the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. You got Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 to 4.
Yes, I've got that. And this is all about idolatry and Christmas. Hear the word which Yahweh speaks to you, O house of Yasra'al. Thus said Yahweh, do not learn the way of the nations, and do not be awed by the signs of the heavens, for the nations are awed by them. For the laws of these people are worthless. For one cuts down a tree from the forest, work of the hands of a craftsman with a cutting tool. They beautify it with silver and gold. They strengthen it with nails and hammers so that it does not topple. So they stand up the tree and they decorate it. Does that remind you of something they do today? Why, that's a Christmas tree. The word of Yahuwah says, do not do it. You have to know where Christmas comes from to understand that it is pagan. When Constantine accepted those who were believing in Messiah, he brought in a whole group of heathen and changed the names of their days that they kept and just kept them in. And Christmas was Saturnalia. And we have a clip on that, I believe.
Yeah, let's go to that. It's a very short clip that I can show here. This is from mind you, it's a secular TV show, which pretty much has no bias, to be lying to you. And so they're going to portray it as humor, but just try to keep in mind what this guy that is playing the role of Sheldon Cooper is about to say. He's about to tell you the whole history of where Christmas comes from. And he's about to hint at that it's not the birthday of the Messiah towards the end. So here we go.
Which is
You have a Christmas tree?
No, because we don't celebrate the ancient pagan festival of Saturnalia.
Saturnalia?
Gather round, kids. It's time for Sheldon's beloved Christmas special.
In the pre-Christian era, as the winter solstice approached and the plants died, pagans brought evergreen boughs into their homes as an act of sympathetic magic intended to guard the life essences of the plants until spring. This custom was later appropriated by Northern Europeans, and eventually it becomes the so-called Christmas tree.
Okay, well, thank you for that, but I got you and Leonard a few silly neighbor gifts, so I'll just put them under my tree.
Wait.
I'll just put them under my tree.
All right, so now I'm going to fast forward a little bit to where he starts talking about Yahusha's birth towards the end here. Let's see, 1minute and 58 seconds in. There we go.
We had a manger. We had an inflatable Santa Claus with plastic reindeer on the front lawn. Now, to make things even more jolly, there were so many blinking lights on the house, they induced neighborhood-wide seizures.
So I take it you don't want to help us trim the tree?
I do not, but if you insist on decorating a spider-infested fire hazard in my home, I would request that you add this.
What is it?
You're kidding, right? It's a bust of Sir Isaac Newton.
Oh, sure. Very Christmassy.
Wait, excuse me, but it's much more Christmassy than anything you've put on the tree.
Here we go.
December 25th, 1642 Julian calendar, Sir Isaac Newton is born. Jesus, on the other hand, was actually born in the summer. His birthday was moved to coincide with a traditional pagan holiday that celebrated the winter solstice with lit fires and slaughtered goats.
So right there he's telling you that Yahusha was not born anywhere near the winter time, basically. So he's letting you know there's no way it could be his birthday, and actually Isaac Newton, at the least, that was his birthday. So they make a little joke.
Nimrod.
Yeah, as Nimrod. So that's kind of interesting. Isaac Newton, if I'm not mistaken, became a Freemason, as far as I remember. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so, and the confusion with our brothers and sisters would say, oh, well, that's incorrect. His birthday's not in the summer. Yeah, but you got to understand the Gregorian calendar versus Yahuwah's calendar. He's obviously talking about summer in the Gregorian calendar, which would be one of the last spring feasts in Yahuwah's calendar. So it would be technically in the spring, actually, according to you.
No, it's in the fall.
Oh, in the fall. I'm sorry.
It's
in
late
the fall.
summer.
Yeah.
Which is in
fall.
September, late September.
Okay. So yeah, thank you for that correction, Sister Shoshana. So the confusion is the Gregorian calendar makes summer. In actuality, according to Yahuwah's calendar, it would be the fall. Would be around the time that Yahusha was born. So nowhere near December. So that was the point that they had him make there. Yep, and so that's the one clip I have from there. Once we get finished with the rest of these scriptures, we're going to go, and I got tons more that are a little bit longer, but I want to get through these scriptures first because the other clips are a little bit longer. So here we go. I think we left off, I was about to read
Jeremiah
Exodus.
10. Yeah.
Yep, and I'm about to read Exodus 32, 5-6. I'll read both versions of this because it gets kind of weird depending on which version you get. One will say Elohim as referring to Yahuwah, and the others will refer that it's talking about multiple mighty ones that they made the golden calf for. So we're going to get to see the difference here. So it says, and Aaron having seen it, built an altar before it, and Aaron made... All right, hold on. Let me actually go up a little bit. Let's see here. Let me see. Where does it say? And Aaron says to the people, verse 2 here, take off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives and your daughters and bring them to me. And all the people took off the golden earrings that were in the ears and brought them to Aaron, and he received them at their hands and formed them with a graving tool, and he made them a molten calf and said, these are your mighty ones, plural. These are your deities of Yashrael, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt. Now, if we go to the Masoretic text, it will just say, this is your mighty one, or Elohim. And actually it is plural here, so in the Masoretic text. So that's where it gets confusing. What were they saying, that this is Yahuwah? Was it other mighty ones? We got to understand the culture of Egypt back then. Egypt needed mediators to worship the actual deity that was behind the mediators. So in the sick, perverted mind that they already were indoctrinated by Mitzrayim, they thought that they needed other deities to worship Yahuwah, to worship him through this idol, basically. So it's pretty much because of the way the pagans thought. You know, they were polytheistic. So they thought that because, to give you an example, Zeus in the Greek religion is the king of Mount Olympus, but there's other gods that are with him up there. And so but at the same time, the reason I'm bringing this scripture up is that we, as the body of Messiah, if they were trying to use the golden calf to worship Yahuwah, we have done the same thing, any of us that have come from Christianity. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Whether or not they were using multiple gods to worship Yahuwah, either way, the next verse says tomorrow's a feast to Yahuwah. So they thought their heart was in the right place, but what did they not have? Mm-hmm. They did not have the truth.
No.
They thought, oh, we're worshiping him in spirit. It's all good. We're singing songs to him. We're using the golden calf that we just made to dedicate to him. So everything they were doing, they thought they were doing it in the spirit, but yet they did not have the truth. And they just like, you know, you'll see from time and time, I remember as growing up as a Protestant, you know, the song, Oh Christmas Tree, mm-hmm. Dancing around the Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then we try to say that's honoring Yahuwah. Saying that dancing to a song that has those type of lyrics and dancing around an inanimate object that we present gifts under and kneel before,
That's
and
valid.
trying to say that honors Yahuwah is just as bad as the golden calf they made to honor him. It's
Now,
just Mhm.
can we say that all of these pagan holidays are just a depiction of a golden calf?
I
Like
pretty much.
Christmas,
I
New
mean,
Year's, and
they all
Valentine's.
go. Yeah, they go back to the same entity. I mean, they all go
Same
back.
origin.
They all, in origin of all these, go back to Nimrod. So he's the golden calf that people have been deceived into worshiping
Right.
instead of Yahusha and Yahuwah. It's been Nimrod and his wife and his son, the pagan trinity that
All the way.
the majority of the world worships that pagan trinity, whether they realize it or not.
And
The
that's
Hindus,
why we believe that Nimrod is the anti-Messiah.
yeah, I mean, Hindus have a pagan trinity. There's a Greek pagan trinity. There's a Roman pagan trinity. There's a Egyptology has a trinity with Osiris, Isis, and Horus.
And Buddha.
I mean,
Don't forget Buddha.
You got Buddha. I think there's some type of trinity with him. I don't know too much about the Buddhist religion, but I'm pretty sure there's a trinity there too. You got Zoroastrianism. You got Christian Gnosticism. I mean, the idea that Sophia is the female divine, that's a pagan trinity. Okay, you got the Father, the Son, and then Sophia, the set-apart spirit. That's what the Gnostics will believe, that the Sophia is this female divine third person. So this pagan trinity that started at Babylon has gone all over the world, and it's spread to every religion, even Catholicism. The idea that Mary,
especially Catholicism.
and all they really did, to add to Shoshana's point, with Constantine, all he did with the pagan trinity is rename Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz as Jesus the Son, God the Father, and Mary the Mother of God. That's what they did. That's all they had to do. They just changed the names around, and you have the S-U-N God, the son of the S-U-N, and then you have, the moon goddess. And that's in like every religion. You can find almost every, especially the polytheistic religions, the actual heathen religions. You can find that everywhere. But anyway, so that's the reason I brought up Exodus 32, 5-6, is because we, as the body of Messiah, in our past ignorance, have done the same thing that Aaron and them did at Mount Sinai. It's no different. It's no different at all in the Father's eyes. So let me see here. So either Sister Marie or Sadie, either one, if you could possibly read 2 Corinthians 11:14.
Okay, bring it up, brother.
All right, 2 Corinthians 11:14. Let me go back. I got to switch my shared screen here because, of course, this never double tasks. All right, 2 Corinthians 11:14. Okay, here we go.
Okay. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light.
Yeah. So Satan can transform into an angel of light. I mean, that should really make us think, okay, so, he can make something that seems tobe or righteous out of something that's really evil. He can make it appear like it's righteous. And I kind of find it funny that some Christmas trees actually have an angel instead of a star on it. I kind of find that interesting.
Angel, star, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, in modern society doesn't realize stars are angels. That's another problem. They understand, like, what the angel that we think of is, but when you when you look at scripture, stars are one and the same as angels, but of course we're not taught to think that way because of the heliocentric model and all that. So that's why people don't compute the 2 and 2 together sometimes. But yeah, they are the same thing. Sister Marissa, if you could possibly read Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isaiah 5, verse 20 says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter."
Yep. Basically, you try to turn righteousness, you try to turn something that's unrighteous into righteous. Like trying to say that stealing is lawful or lying is lawful. That would be an example of, like, a very obvious example of it.
Can I say something?
Yep.
When you said that, I just got really convicted because so many people around the world turn Christmas into righteousness. They turn it into, this is the birth of Yahushua HaMashiach, is good season to give, and they've turned it into righteousness, not knowing, like we're exposed to the truth. So we cannot turn that in. And I mean, when you know better, you do better. And it's sad because it is a beautiful season. It is a beautiful time, but they don't realize the roots. And in actuality, we should be jolly and happy and content with our family every day and give what we can give to our loved ones. Not wait once a year to blow it all out and to follow what the pagan system has called us to follow. But I think the one thing about Christmas is it's a season that has played on the strings of hearts. And it's really sad because what was, like you said it so well, and we got to be really mindful of what is the underlying. And I mean, it doesn't mean we become a sour face and we pop everybody's bubble. But at this point, we have to come back to them in love so that they realize this is, I don't know what, whatever the Ruach leads you at that time to minister to them, because they're giving you a blessing of what they think is right. And so there's got to be something that we can come back to them and say, for me, if you want to look at it, Christmas is every day, because Yahushua died for people every single day. They're born, that they come to knowledge. That's what it is. And if you want to celebrate it on one day, I believe that you wait all year long to give a gift to somebody when you can give it to them then, because we don't have tomorrow as a guarantee. For tomorrow's promised to no man. And the gospel should be given every time. What does he tell us to go do? Go spread the good news. He didn't say it just on the 24th. Go spread the good news, because tomorrow's promised to no man. Okay.
Yeah. What most believers don't understand is I like to call it Nimrodness. That's what it really is. It's all a counterfeit. It's all Satan taking what belongs to Yahuwah and attributing it to himself. The colors. Have you ever thought where Satan gets the green and the red from? Revelation chapter 4, verse 3. That's the colors of Yahuwah's throne. Satan wanted to be worshipped. He wanted to be like Yahuwah. He said, I will ascend above the stars of Elohim. I will be like the Most High. Many believers today are deceived into worshiping Satan on this day through his mighty one, his Mashiach, his Messiah, not the real Messiah. His Messiah, and you can, look this up. This is a historical fact. every pagan deity was born on December 25th, including Nimrod. He literally was born on December 25th. So this day has nothing to do with the Messiah and nothing to do with the Father. If anything, it's a ripoff. If anything, it's a day for Satan to rip off Yahuwah, take his colors.
Oh yeah.
Tribute to him. What else? The trying to use the virgin birth to deceive believers into thinking that it's about Yahusha, because Satan did that with Tammuz. He counterfeited Yahusha with Tammuz. So this day is all about a counterfeit. It's counterfeiting him, counterfeiting the Almighty. It's all about making people think about the Messiah, but they're actually worshiping the anti-Messiah, whether they know it or not. That's what it really is. And so that's the truth about it. That's, but let's see here.
They will know when anti-Messiah arrives on the scene. That's exactly what they've been doing.
Yeah, because he'll reveal it to them at that point. He'll say, oh, yeah, you've been worshiping me the whole time. Yeah, I'm the guy that was born on December 25th. I'm the guy that that you believe is your Messiah, and they'll probably use some type of technology so that when the Hindus see him, they see Krishna and all that. They'll probably find some way to deceive the whole world.
He'll say he's all of those in one.
Yeah. He'll probably say you know me by many names, which we have. Nimrod, at Tower of Babel, he became known by many, many names.
Yeah.
So that's why he's all over. But let's see here. I think we have enough time for one cross-reference. We'll have to do a part 3. Sister Shoshana, if you could read Job chapter 14, verse 4. Let's see here.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
Who brings the clean out of the unclean? No one.
So this is something that we should all be reminding ourselves. We cannot recycle paganism and make it set apart. We cannot do that. Even physically, it's impossible. You cannot make something that's defiled undefiled. You cannot.
And that's exactly what Constantine did.
Yeah, he tried to sprinkle a little bit, of holy water, or whatever you want to call it, on Saturnalia, and then turn it into Messiah's birthday, which, by the way, no one ever remembered Messiah's birthday or even celebrated Messiah's birthday in any way, shape, or form until the 4th century AD. That's a historical fact.
When Constantine
when Constantine changed Saturnalia into Christmas, which, by the way, Christmas, that Latin word Christmas, is an amalgamation of mass, which means death or massacre, Christ. So the death of Christ. So those that are initiated in the Vatican celebrate it as it's almost like they're re-murdering the Messiah. And that's the esoteric meaning to them. That's why they call it Christ Mass. From the Latin, it means massacre, death. So it means death of Christ. So any Christians that are out there, that's something you should be thinking about too. That's what the meaning of that name of that holiday means. So it's like they're re-celebrating his death, like it's almost happening again and again and again, which is very evil in my opinion. It's very evil. It's almost like they're celebrating his murder, So.
On the cross.
Yeah, it's like they're re-going back to the cross, celebrating him being killed on the cross, like.
And yet he didn't die on the cross. He died on a stake or storehouse.
Yeah, he was hung on a tree according